Good morning, beautiful humans. We are joining you right from Johannesburg, South Africa. I am Naomi, and I will be the moderator for this session. I want to get you guys to really be, prepared for an insightful session with us. I will start by introducing myself. Like I said, I am Naomi, and I am the co-founder of Women in Big Data South Africa. We are part of a learning community that's about 17,000 women around the world. And I sit on the Global Executive Committee for Women in Big Data. What we're trying to do is to champion the success of women in big data by partnering with big tech companies to really help them implement their training modules that are data-centered courses that are targeted for our women community so that they can help reskill themselves. Joining me this morning, I have Tshidi Morabi, and she will tell you all about herself. I have also Tshiamo Setswaelo and Raiseje Sefala. So yes, ladies, welcome, and I really look forward to having you and having this conversation with you. Tshidi, let's start with you. Who are you? Where did you grow up? What do you do?
Okay. My name is Tshidi Morabi. I was born in Tembisa. I went to school in Tembisa, and then after a few years of experience, then I started a company called Genini Consulting, which focuses on software development, IT training, as well as your risk management. There are a lot of things that we do under the consulting part as well. And yeah, I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Great. Thank you so much for making time to have this conversation with us. Tshiamo, you're up next.
Sure. Hey everybody. My name is Tshiamo Setswaelo. I have a background in computer science, and I am a data scientist and a co-founder of an organization called Social Coding. So basically what social coding is about is giving the underprivileged kids a chance to have an jab at coding, basically being able to understand how it is, basically giving them the head start that most kids don't have. We basically take them from as young as 8 years old, groom them up until they're 18, help them apply for bursary, and want to further their careers in the tech space.
Awesome. Raiseje?
Thank you. Hi, my name is Raiseje, and I'm a research assistant at a lab in UC Berkeley, in the US, and I studied computer science. I'm a data scientist by profession, and I grew up in Leapfrog, the township in Limpopo. And yeah, that's just me in a nutshell. Oh, I've also co-founded an organization called Women in Computational Science Research, which sort of just aims to firstly improve the quality of research and increase the number of women in the space of computational science research in South Africa.
Yeah, awesome. So our topic today is going to be looking at how we can use big data to leverage African or to actually leapfrog African challenges. And we are all in some shape or form involved in the reskilling of either women or the youth in South Africa. So I just want to get your opinion on digital skills. How do we look at it and manifest it in our country? What do we think it's about? How are we as individuals doing some of this work in the community, leveraging this way of learning? Anyone can start.
Okay, maybe I can start.
Yes.
Okay, so in terms of reskilling, you wanted the opinion on reskilling on digital skills, am I correct?
Yes, like what's the difference between those who are living in urban areas and those who are living in, peri-urban township areas, and how are we helping them?
Yeah, sure. there's a huge gap, I must say, in terms of the ones that are living in the urban areas and the one who are living in the rural areas. Because when you look at upskilling them or giving them the opportunity to learn coding and stuff like that, first thing that you need to start off with, it will be your infrastructure, which is a challenge. Even if you can say you can have cars that are implemented with other things inside, like your computer, so that you can use it as maybe a mobile school. The challenge will be that when you get there won't be any infrastructure to assist you to access the network. So there are things that are in place, like in terms of there's another company that is doing Engage, but as well as they do that, they've got a small device that they that will assist to teach these kids. Even if you can use that, you still need access to the network. And then in the urban areas, the advantage is that the kids, they have the infrastructure already. They might have challenges with maybe accessing of data and stuff like that. But the nicest thing is that at least the infrastructure is there,
Is there,
plans, so that they can access this opportunity. So I think because of that huge gap, it poses a big challenge, and it's like there's so much inequality because of that. Even if we can try as small companies to assist, but it's difficult for us to assist those.
Yeah,
So even
absolutely.
if you go, especially now with the coronavirus, let's say if you go there, you bring your own stuff, you teach them. Firstly, you first need to teach them what is the computer, how does it work, and stuff like that, which is not a problem. At least they will be on the same page with other kids. So
Yeah. Tshiamo, we're talking about how we are trying to, bridge the gap between those living in urban areas and peri-urban areas. What's your take on that?
So, just speaking from experience with the work that I do with social coding, privilege plays a very, very important role, because the kids from urban areas, as much as they don't realize it, are very, very privileged. They get to interact with technology from probably birth. They get their tablets, their iPads, get to watch YouTube. Data's never a problem. And I remember we once had a tech week with one of the kids in one of the townships in South Africa. We had partnered with a university, and they said, come through and teach these kids how to code. And we were under the impression that these kids obviously know how to code, because why else are we being able to get in to facilitate this? And I remember walking in as one of the facilitators, and we said to the kids, sit on the computer, do this, do this. And about 80% of them were just too scared to touch it. And for me, that was a heartbreaking thing. And it also made me realize the privilege that I had, because my assumption walking in as a facilitator were these people familiar with the technology.
Yes, yeah.
And when I got there, 90% of them didn't even know how to switch it on. They were scared. And when I asked them, I'm like, why don't you want to? She's like, my parents cannot afford to pay for a computer. Should I
If I break it, yeah.
break it? So I don't even want to touch it, because I know we can't afford to replace it. And we just had to take a step back, and that's when it became a crucial thing that whenever we do social coding workshops, computer familiarization is the number one thing, and comfortable is also a number one thing. I mean, the other thing is working with computers. 90% of the thing is confidence. A lot of the time, people don't know what they're doing. But because I have the confidence to go out there and actually say, I'm gonna make it work. Google's gonna be there. Google's gonna help me. But they didn't even have that. So the one thing that I always say, especially for kids that are coming from very underprivileged background, they need a huge boost of confidence, especially in the tech space. They need that push to say, listen, you can do this. You can get the information out there. You can copy and paste, get it wrong the first time, but fix it eventually. And it's just basically that thing of making sure that the privilege that we have doesn't cloud our judgment to those who don't have it. Because a lot of the times when we go out, we think that everyone knows what a computer is. Everyone is not as secure and working and all that. So for me, the number one thing is just being able to leverage everything that I have and try and make the playing field as level as possible for the kids that have never been exposed to this kind of tech.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's so heartbreaking because even with the women that we work with,
Mm,
they are professional women, they are exposed to the hard way, but there's also still a confidence issue. Am I doing the right thing? Do I know
yep.
what I'm talking about? So we do also still see that even in the adults, in the professionals who have exposure to, to the hard way. So
Yeah.
it really isn't about also, I think, the hard way. It's also about how we teach, how we learn from failure, how we encourage each other to keep going, even when we are, experiencing self-doubt and all those kinds of things. I say, Jay, have you seen any of this in your line of work, and how have you handled and tried to solve it?
Yeah, actually, from like a research perspective, you see like a huge difference in universities which are like, not part of the like, your VITS or your UCT or
Yeah,
things like that.
the big
And
four.
like there's a huge gap between, yeah, there's like a huge gap between
Mhm.
those universities and other smaller universities in the country, where we see things like if you're doing research, accessing tools like a Microsoft Azure or Google Cloud platforms to sort of maybe optimize or upscale your resources. You don't have that. And as a result, the kind of technology that they are able to develop is a bit like few steps back
Yeah,
because of the lack of the resources.
yeah,
So yeah, so we see that's what I've seen. I mean, just asking questions around why aren't these universities also submitting in international conferences, like competing at an international
yeah,
scale? Just
yeah,
digging deeper into that, you see that these sort of new resources that enable us to scale our models and scale the tech that we do, they don't have access to it.
yeah,
And yeah, I mean, either
yeah,
because of cost or just exposure, because you can just
yeah.
apply for credit and other. I mean, you can't be what you can't see, and you can't use what you don't know.
Exactly.
So there's
Exactly.
that
That's
And
very
too.
true.
exposure and access to, emerging tech is so crucial, especially now because we need to develop our own solutions that are not, intertwined with what the West is doing. Yes, there is
Yes.
Mm,
value in having, some sort of, collaboration, framework with the West, but we really need to start to get to a point where we are developing our own solutions, and access to resources, access to
mm,
emerging tech is very crucial, especially at university level, because that's where the R&D models sit. And I
mm,
just want to bring us to, the business side of things. How do we use data, or rather big data, to leverage some of the things we are experiencing? I mean, now we are all undergoing load shedding, for example. How do we take big data and actually monetize it to not only make money, because that's what business is
Mhm.
about, but also solving the issues at granular level. Because whenever we talk about tech, people usually just think pie in the sky solutions. What are some of the solutions that we could really leverage by using data?
Well, I think there's quite a lot. And in Africa as a whole, there is quite a lot of solutions that we as Africans need to build for ourselves. Ne? Let's just take the example of you now saying load shedding. A couple of years back, we didn't have an app that would say to us, listen, your power's got to go off in the next hour. And you
Yeah.
could basically say, okay, I need to cook, get everything done because I'm not going to have power for the next 2 hours, you know? And someone saw a gap in the industry and said people are constantly being shocked by not having electricity. So leverage something, leverage all the data on one platform and let them know. And now we've got that tool where we can literally just go onto our app and say, okay, when is my power going off? Okay, it's going off at 4. Okay, I need to cook dinner by 2, make sure at 3 I'm done and make life easier for
Make sure
myself.
everything is charged, all the power banks.
You know, I've got my I can work for the next 2 hours, which makes our lives easier. And I
Yeah.
think the thing with Africa, South Africa as a whole, is there's so many issues like that. There's so many opportunities where we can actually leverage big data to solve everyday problems, you know. I can give you another example. Like 90% of the people in South Africa, to commute and to go around, they make use of taxis, right?
Yeah.
And it's always been that question of why don't we have an app that will help people know which routes to take and how much it's going to cost them and how long they expect their trip to be. Because if you don't even know someone who's been somewhere, you basically struggle to figure out how to get from a certain point to another. So it's one of those things where there's a lot of data available. There's a lot of problems available. We can literally use this data that we have and solve our everyday problems, make our lives easier. And I think that's one of the things that we can do. And it's one of the things that I'm very passionate about as well.
Yeah.
And I always say this to my kids in social coding, that there's a lot of problems around us. We just need to come down and say, how do I solve the everyday problems that we have? And most of the time, they always come to me and say, I think we can do this. I think we can do that. And they're usually everyday problems that everyone faces that we've never come across a solution to it. And we're always just thinking, maybe I'm the solution. Like maybe I can find something that's going to say to me, this is how we go forth. And when I solve it for myself, I also solve it for many other South Africans out there.
Yeah. Tshidi, you've tried to actually provide a solution to scholar transport, getting learners from home to school in a safe manner. Just share with us what that is about.
Okay, so the scholar transport is called Log Transi. It's a scholar transport app. So how it started is that I was panicking. I could not locate my child. I could not locate the driver. When I was calling the driver and asking where they are, she was not picking up her phone. And I got so angry to say, I can't reach you. You have my child with you. And I came back, sat on my sofa and say, you know what, this is not on. And because I need to know where you are, at least communicate with me if you have transport problems or maybe mechanical issues. And then when I started writing the functional spec, few days down the line, the developer was sitting developing the actual app, not knowing that I was solving the social illness of lots of peoples, because people were going through that, but because of this, the scholar transport drivers, they are like taxi drivers, they're not approachable. You pay them, but you're scared of them. So then I thought to myself, now I need to know where my child is, because even before that, I was trying to locate, I wanted a scholar transport driver that will take my child from one place to another. And in the vicinity where I stay, I was chasing cars and asking them if they're going to the same direction and how much is it and all of that. So before the actual app came into place, I have already started with the database of knowing who's doing what where, so that it's easier. Even if you relocate to my area, you can just go into the app and search for the scholar transport drivers that are going to the direction of your school, your children's school. Yes.
And how was that
So
received
that
in the
was,
township? I mean, you are providing a solution to a township issue, mainly because the kids in the urban areas, they get dropped off by Uber, or their parents drop them off. But we grew up, using scholar transport because our parents didn't have the cars to drop us off at school. So how was this received in the township?
I must say it was well received in the urban areas compared to the townships, because at the schools, they no longer accept the Ubers, because with this app, the relationship between the scholar transport driver and the parent must already exist for you to be able to take the child. Whereas with the Uber, you just take your child and put your child in the stranger's car. You don't even know this person, with the hope that the child will be home safe. So with this one, the relationship exists. When the child is picked up, the parent will get a notification to say the child is now en route. When the child is dropped off, you will get a notification to say the child is now dropped off. When the child is received at school, you'll get another notification to say now the child is no longer in the hands of the scholar transport driver. The teacher has taken accountability now to take care of this child. Whereas in the township, the challenge was the data issue. So I was in negotiations with MTN, because I won 2 awards with them for the app of the year of 2019. I went to them and I said, we need scholar transport transit data so that it can be only be used for locating or communicating on scholar transit, like the one that we have on WhatsApp. So I was still in negotiation with them before this coronavirus came in.
Oh gosh.
So,
I mean, it is such a simple solution, yet it requires so much collaboration and partnership with the various elements of society. I mean, you trying to bring on MTN is another element, because again, you're trying to solve an issue of connectivity, which most of our peri-urban areas, like the townships, don't really have access to. Like, we have access to mobile, phones, but we really don't afford, we can't afford the connectivity, rates that are being charged at right now. So, I can also see a potential partnership with a grocery retailer, at somewhere down the line, where you are now providing, enabling families to also, pick up groceries on their way from school, those kinds of things. I really,
exactly. Because on the app itself, the grocery stores, they can actually advertise and say, maybe during the pickup time, they can advertise things that are relevant for tomorrow's lunch boxes and stuff like that. So those are the things that we're also negotiating with this case.
Yeah. Do you guys think that, and I say guys loosely, please forgive me. Do you guys think that we really value the data that we see value in the data that we give so freely to, the big tech? Do you guys really think that at granular level, at grassroots level, people really, understand what we are doing when we are providing our location data, our, personal information, those kinds of things?
No. I honestly don't think.
No, I don't think. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'll go.
No, I honestly also do. Go ahead.
Sorry, I said I don't think people are very aware of that. Most people actually have their location data given to the cloud platforms and the big service providers without even knowing it. But then what I also find interesting is when you actually voluntarily say to people, "This is a problem I'm trying to solve. Can you give me access to 1, 2, 3?" They're very against it, because they're just like, "I don't want to give away my stuff." And when you say to them, "Do you actually know that you voluntarily, by just using it every day, are giving you're giving data away?" So you already saying no to me trying to solve something you dealing with is something else. And I've seen this a lot of times where you come to an organization and you say to them, "This is what we're trying to solve for. I need 1, 2, 3," and they're like, "No, you can't have access to that." And I'm just like, but other companies have access to that, and they're not even solving your day-to-day problems. I'm coming, I'm saying, "Give it to me, let me solve your day-to-day problems and make your life easier." And you've got like a hiccup against it. You don't want to participate. So, and this happens to South Africans. They'd be like, "No, I don't want you to have my data. I don't want," and I'm like, "I'm trying to build this." "No, you will not have access to it." And I'm like, "But you give Apple, you give Google, you give everybody, you don't want that." So that's like one of the things that I'm just always like, people aren't really aware of how much data they give on a day-to-day basis just by having a mobile phone.
Right, CJ, I'm gonna close up with
actually,
you
like
time. But yeah, just you wanted to say something.
Yeah, actually, like a real example is this. We're doing research on modeling this COVID-19 in South Africa, and just getting data from service providers is just a nightmare. It is, and they have the data, but then for some reason it's just stuck within the lawyers now, and we're just going back and forth. And these are like, I mean, we should be getting this data at this moment. For example, this is like, the one time that we should be getting it, but it's just
I'm really passionate about open source data and how we can actually, use that way of accessing data, to really solve our problems. Because at the end of the day, we are giving off our data freely, whether or not we are conscious of it. But the minute you want to actually solve a problem, people then get aware that, oh my, she might actually make money from this. So no, let's stop her from 1 to 3. And it's not helping us. It's not getting us anywhere. But really, I want to have so much more to say about this topic, but we have run out of time. I wanted us to touch on COVID, actually, how we can use big data to solve and leverage, healthcare solutions. But I suppose we've run out of time, and thank you. Let's rather, answer some questions. Do you guys have any questions for us? No questions?
Doesn't look like it.
No questions. Can we keep going just for 10 more minutes, please? I want us to touch on COVID. What are some of the things that governments can do to really hone in on some of the data that they actually have? Okay, we're actually are out of time. Sorry, guys. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much for joining us. I really, really enjoyed my chat with you. I wish we could keep going. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for
Thank you for inviting us.
Cool. Bye.